covered all the pass game options that I can think of at this point. The last one or two players, though, come from the backfield. And obviously, Clyde Edwards Helaire, I would love to dig into him a little bit. He wasn't awful as a rookie, but last year, fantasy owners were drafting him, sometimes in the top 5. I know I took him at 4th in one draft, thinking that we're getting that next Andy Reid workhorse, Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Charles, Kareem Hunt. He's had so many monster backs in fantasy, but then we just got the running back 22. It kind of felt like a disappointment within that kind of context. Now, how is he looking, though, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as a sophomore? Is there any reason you could see a spike in his usage and or stats and maybe he reaches those levels? Or is it just always going to be kind of what we saw last year?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nick. And let's be both good cop and bad cop with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So if I'm the good cop, I'm advocating that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is running behind a better offensive line. So that should give you an extra yard or two in certain spots. Maybe he's able to pop more big runs this season than last year. By the way, what a tease in the opener against the Houston Texans, where we all didn't realize, wow, the Houston Texans are bad at defense.
Yeah.
Because he was
all over the place.
No preseason games, coming off a 15-game LSU run that is unprecedented, really, for a college running back, knowing how good he was as really a one-time starter with Joe Burrow. That LSU offense, we're going to look back 10 years and be like, that was a great team. So he comes off that. There's no preseason games. You've rushed everything up from a playbook standpoint. People tend to forget about this too. He was not supposed to be the starter. Damian Williams had come off an amazing Super Bowl performance in Super Bowl 54. He opts out because of COVID to deal with his mother and to make sure she's okay from a health standpoint. So they really rush everything to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He gets over 100 all-purpose yards, scores a touchdown, has highlights all over the place. And then a month later, we're like, the Houston Texans were really that bad. And it's like, yeah, they're really that bad. So it was kind of a tease. He wasn't playing against the best offensive line. So if the offensive line improves this year, there's just going to be more yards. He got hurt in December. So what you hope in year 2 is he got time to rest his body. He's going to be there for all 17 games, which should give you more production. As you mentioned, Nick, it was 1,100 all-purpose yards. Not terrible, not great. The biggest issue, and this kind of where I go from good cop to a bad cop, is because he's somewhat undersized, because he's not Kareem Hunt, he struggled in the red zone. And so all of what this season will come down to, weirdly for Clyde, is we know what you can do from the 20 to the 20s. Like in that middle of the field, in those, 60 yards, you're excellent. You're going to have all the, the opportunity to really succeed in this Chiefs offense. It's when you get inside the 20s, when you get inside the red zone, can the Chiefs offensive line punch it in? Can he make guys miss in the open field or in that one-on-one sort of, it's coming, the defense knows it's coming, the cheerleaders know it's coming, the guy in row 80 knows it's coming, the commentators knows it's coming. Can you run the ball into the end zone? And if that happens, again, it's one of those things where the Chiefs offense even goes from being great to holy smokes. From a bad cop perspective, is Clyde ever going to get there? Who knows? There's real reason to question that. I would also say, too, because McCole Hardman may be better, maybe those targets go to him. Maybe the Chiefs sort of are okay with his snap count portion. When training camp started, my thought was, Clyde should get most of the reps in practice. They should really, get a real rhythm with him. Well, he's been splitting time with Darrell Williams, who had a decent season last year. Jared McKinnon has come in and really dazzled in training camp because we know he can do from a running back and sort of that secondary receiver standpoint. So maybe his snaps aren't as high from a back cop perspective, where he doesn't get that increased amount of chances from year 1 to year 2 that you mostly see out of running backs. It's really a coin toss, kids. I don't know. I want to say that Clyde is going to be better just because most running backs are between year 1 and year 2. But, he's playing in an offense that's always pass first, and maybe the red zone struggles continue, and that gives more opportunities to someone like Travis Kelce and less to Clyde Edwards-Helaire if all things sort of remain true. That really bore out last year. And interestingly enough, they were passing the ball to Anthony Sherman for touchdowns last year in the red zone.
So
Not Clyde Edwards Helaire.
Yep.
I don't know if Andy's going to do that with Michael Burton. He's a new fullback. You're never going to draft him, but you will be upset if he starts scoring touchdowns in the red zone over Clyde Edwards Helaire, because that's what happened a year ago, where all of a sudden they're down at the 5-yard line and they're running trickeration, and it's like that doesn't benefit the Clyde Edwards Helaire fantasy owners. It doesn't benefit them one bit. So there's some good cop, bad cop to it, and I really think it's a coin toss. And you hope that there's going to be more production from a fantasy standpoint, but I can't guarantee you that this year, much like I have a little bit more confidence in McCole Hardman. If we're putting these two players on the same tier in terms of fantasy drafting standpoint, I think the edge right now goes to McCole. And I think we're really going to have to see how this offensive line gels, and can they really push defenders back when they get in the red zone, because that's what's going to help Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know if he's the Kareem Hunt where they could give Kareem Hunt the ball at the 7-yard line, and it's just like, I don't care if there's 3 defenders. He might somehow get in the end zone, which is what makes, someone like Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt so valuable, because they can burst and break off these long runs, but they're so great in short yardage red zone situations. That'll be the real hurdle for Clyde.
Yeah, it would be very intriguing indeed. You're giving me a little bit of PTSD here, Nate, because I had Clyde on so many teams, and the amount of times I swore at my TV, almost threw a remote through it because of fullback or Kelsey's getting an end around, or like it would never be Helaire, and the touchdowns were never there. And I am hopeful that line will be the difference, because he was just getting blown up. There's so many times it's like he didn't even have a chance.
Yes.
But maybe that's just by design. Maybe he's not made for that too. So I think you're really emphasizing that there is obviously a ceiling that could be huge if he is getting those touchdowns. He's getting those touches in between the 20s plus the touchdowns, but a pretty decent floor if those touchdowns aren't coming, if the receiving work isn't actually coming more because McCole Hardman stepped up or who else. So there is a pretty good ceiling. There's a pretty big floor. And I think maybe he might be a little overvalued where he's going, because he's going around some running backs and receivers that just have much more higher ceilings and floors alongside them. Similar ceilings, I should say, but higher floors. That's interesting to note. For sure. Hopefully the line does pan out for him. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.